Carmen Berzado, and today we're going to be making beef brajal. Now, this is a very special dish in my dysfunctional nightmare of a household. My brother Mike made this for us every single Sunday. And you guys, this is a cute story. My brother, who is addicted to painkillers, blew his head off.
The Bear is a critically acclaimed American drama series that premiered in 2022. The plot follows the daily life of the professional chef Carmi Berzado, who moved back to his hometown of Chicago after the death of his older brother.
He did leave me our family's restaurant and his will, which was a nice curveball considering he never let me work there with him, even though I'm pretty good at this, right?
Carmi inherits the Berzado family restaurant that was previously owned and managed by his late brother, which he decides to run himself, even if it means that he needs to leave behind his job at a Michelin star restaurant.
I used to run the best restaurant on the planet Earth. It was pretty different from my brother's shithole, which was barely hanging on by a thread. So that was a nice final fuck you from Michael on the way out. Anyway, brajal.
Although YouTube is filled with informal video essays about the bear, it is yet to be explored from a more scholarly perspective. One of the few texts about the bear is Alessandra Olga Garcia Serra's research article from 2024, where she writes about the representation of Italian Americans in the bear.
Richie Jaramovich, pleasure to meet you, sweetheart.
Don't say sweetheart, you fucking
sorry,
weirdo.
Carm, you're so woke. I meant nothing by it. Sydney, saying sweetheart's just part of our Italian heritage.
That's beautiful, thank you.
Although Sarah's topic is interesting, this video essay is not going to explore the Berzado family's Italian-American heritage. Rather, it is going to focus on an equally important aspect of the series, namely stress.
Get the fuck back to work! Move!
Holy shit.
Everybody! Fucking idiots!
Stress is a form of mental tension that has damaged the mental health of many people who have experienced it. Although stress is a popular topic of discussion in contemporary media, it is rarely discussed within the realm of film studies. That is exactly why I want to contribute to the research, or rather fill in the gap that the lack of research about stress has left within film studies. This is something I am going to achieve by exploring the representation of stress in the bear using two different yet similar theories, namely George Lukács' theory of realism and naturalism. There are research articles within the fields of psychology and healthcare, like Siped and Hunger's article from 2022, or Gibbons and Murray Gibbons' article from 2007, that investigate work-induced stress in the restaurant and catering industry and claim that the people who work within those industries are often exposed to stress caused by the environment of the workplace. These research articles indicate that the representation of stress in the bear is realistic and accurate. But while the representation of stress in the bear might be realistic by the standard definition of the word, is it actually realistic based on Lukács' theory of realism, by which he means that a realistic work is an accurate portrayal of the structure of contemporary politics and society? That is the question that I want to answer while exploring the representation of stress in the bear. More precisely, I want to find out what way stress is connected to contemporary society and in what way it contributes to the unraveling of the narrative. This part of the video will be a short introduction to the upcoming chapters of the essay. In chapter 4 and 5, I am going to be talking about the portrayal of capitalism and unethical workplace behavior in different TV series. This will help me understand how the possible causes and symptoms of stress are represented in other series and films. Chapter 6 is going to be about the theories of realism and naturalism, which I am going to use in my analysis and discussion. In this 7th chapter, I am going to analyze and discuss the representation of stress in the bear through investigating the 7th episode of the first season. The method I will be using to explore the representation of stress in the bear is quite simple. I am going to analyze parts of the narrative and the audiovisual techniques that the series uses to generate the feelings of stress. Furthermore, I am also going to investigate the characters, actions, reactions, and interactions. And finally, in the last chapter, I am going to talk about the results of the analysis and the discussion. Capitalism and its representation in film and series is a rather well-explored topic in the field of film studies. While searching for relevant academic texts about capitalism in film and series, I found two particularly interesting articles. One of these is Min Jung-no's article from 2020. No investigates the portrayal of South Korean capitalism in the film Parasite and mentions that the socio-economic system of the country is almost portrayed as a religion. In some parts of the text, No writes about the relation between South Korea's socioeconomic classes and claims that Parasite shows the hostility between the higher and lower classes.
아무튼 뭐 말로 설명하기 힘들고 가끔 그 지하철 타면 나는 냄새 있어. 그런 거랑 비슷해.
몰라, 난 너무 오래돼서 지하철 타본 지.
지하철 타는 분들 특유의 냄새가 있거든.
In the film, the Kim family, who belong to the lower class, are portrayed as parasites that go to great lengths to exploit the higher class Park family. But No explains that in reality, the likes of the Park family, namely the higher class, are the actual parasites that make money from the hard labor of the lower classes. The second text that I found very interesting is Sean Brayton's article from 2016, which is about the correlation between capitalism and mental illness in films. The author explains that characters in films like American Psycho and Wolf of Wall Street who achieve some kind of financial success show symptoms of psychopathy, which he writes is both a prerequisite and a result of contemporary capitalism.
Hey, everybody, listen up! This is what happens when you fuck with your pets on New Issue Day. Take your little bow tie, get your shit, and get the fuck out of my office, you understand? Get the fuck out!
Furthermore, Brayton explains that even characters belonging to the lower classes, namely workers who didn't achieve any major financial success, are also showing symptoms of mental illness, like the main character from Fight Club who suffers from depression, insomnia, and delirium.
For 6 months, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. With insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Brayton's text can even be connected to the two formerly mentioned texts that investigate work-related stress in the restaurant and catering industry, namely Seibt and Hunger's article from 2022, or Gibbons and Murray Gibbons' article from 2007, because even these texts reflect the heavy toll that the capitalistic system takes on people in contemporary society. Kimberly McDermott and Da-Jung Woo investigate how unethical and unvirtuous workplace behavior is portrayed in popular TV series and how adolescents perceive these behaviors. They even write about how these adolescents use their interpretations for their vocational anticipatory socialization. Through their research, the authors discovered 4 major types of unethical and unvirtuous workplace behaviors that are present in many of the series they analyzed. These behaviors are rude and unfair treatment of others.
If I had a gun with 2 bullets and I was in a room with Hitler, Bin Laden, and Toby, I would shoot Toby twice.
Knowingly violating workplace norms.
We appreciate your time, but I think what we're probably going to do is just take a seat and get to work.
Trust you completely.
Yeah, we really feel like you got a lot to offer.
Abusing power.
Heard Spider-Man was there.
Where were you? Photographing squirrels? You're fired.
Chief, the planetarium party.
Oh, right. You're unfired. I need you. Come here.
And neglecting duties.
Oh, hi, Jan. He's on a sales call.
When asking the adolescents who participated in McDermott and Wu's study about the reactions to the representation of these unethical and unvirtuous behaviors, some of the adolescents said that these behaviors help the characters cope with stressful situations. This indicates that looking at the characters' reactions to certain tense situations is crucial when investigating the representation of stress, because it reveals much about how stress relates to the unfolding of the series' narrative. As I have mentioned before, the theories I will be using in my analysis of the bear are Lukács' theory of realism and the theory of naturalism. While both of these theories are concerned with realistic representations in novels, there are radical differences between what they mean by realistic. Mike Wayne writes about Lukács' theory of realism and critique of naturalism in his book from 2001. He explains that Lukács' realism means that a realist novel unveils the deep relationships and structures within contemporary society. Wayne writes that Lukács' idea that the social world is in process and that realist art must uncover the deeper hidden, mediated, not immediately perceptible network of relationships that go to make up society. Naturalism is not concerned with this kind of representation of society. It represents a much more surface-level view of a society, according to Wayne. It is more concerned with description and obsession with detail. It aspires towards a kind of neutrality in its narration, and it lacks the depth to represent the underlying causes of a story's conflict. Wayne explains that Lukács criticized naturalism because of its lack of capacity to portray the underlying political and socio-economical structures in society that is represented in the narrative. Here I will be mainly talking about Review, which is the 7th episode of the first season of The Bear. Review is a phenomenal episode in which stress has a very nuanced representation. It starts off as a somewhat cheerful and calm episode, but it gradually spirals into utter chaos. Ibra, who is one of the co-workers at Carmi's restaurant, cheerfully reads the review that the restaurant got from one of Chicago's famous food critics.
The word we would have used it to describe the beef before this review was reliable. The word I would choose now after my most recent meals at the well-loved, if not shabby establishment, is elevated or elegant.
Although they get much appraisal from the critic, the content of the review leads to a tense atmosphere. The critic praises a dish that the restaurant's sous chef Sydney experimented with, which he gave to him without realizing his position in the food industry. This led to Carmi's old friend and employer Richie to accuse her of knowingly giving the reviewer a dish that was not on the menu, and claim that it is a part of her plan that will replace the, as he calls it,
OGs.
Okay, the OGs?
Yeah, bus drivers, secretaries, teachers.
Sorry, are we just naming?
While Richie is clearly upset, Carmi is seemingly unbothered with Sydney's mistake, but he gets furious after finding out about another mistake she made the day before. The restaurant implemented a new tactic recently, in the form of online pre-ordering. Their plan was to make pre-orders possible as soon as they started their shifts, but Sydney forgot to turn off this option overnight, and people ended up pre-ordering food way earlier than the restaurant expected. This, together with the restaurant's newfound success, led to a massive amount of pre-orders, which was catastrophic because of the restaurant's lack of resources. The tension between Sydney, Carmi, and Richie caused by this mistake led to them taking out their rage on each other and on the innocent employees. The environment of the restaurant got filled with fury and stress, which led to a chaotic fight that ended up in an accidental stabbing and serious conflict between the employees.
Cousin, just fucking...
Shut the fuck up!
Holy fuck! Motherfucker! No, we have a customer out. I got stabbed. Not right now. I got stabbed. Son of a fucking...
But in what way was this immeasurable amount of stress represented, and how does Lukács' theory of stress and the theory of naturalism relate to all of this? To start off, it is important to look at the cause of the stress, which is Sydney's mistakes, namely serving an experimental dish to a food critic and not turning off the pre-order option. At first glance, this seems like a very surface-level problem that one might associate with naturalism. It is something that could be confirmed by previously mentioned research, like namely Seibt and Hunger's article and Gibbons and Murray Gibbons' article, which supports these assumptions by proving that the workplaces in the restaurant industry often lead to employees experiencing work-related stress. But this too has an underlying cause, just like what we see in The Bear, namely the effects of the capitalistic socio-economic system of contemporary society. This is proven by the true nature of the pre-orders that take place in the episode, which is a symbol for a craving for consumption and excellence that has initiated and heavily boosted by the fantastic review given by a trusted food critic. At the same time, this episode was showing the other side of the coin that lies parallel to the craving of the consumer, namely the toll that the fulfillment of these cravings takes on the workers and the capitalist, meaning that stress is at least partially represented as a result of an underlying societal cause that is typical of Lukács realism. But how does the bear actually show the toll that the capitalistic system takes on the characters? Well, exploring this can be aided by formerly mentioned texts, namely Noah and Brayton's texts. Firstly, it is interesting to look at the actions of the restaurant's owner, Carmi, who is also the highest-ranking chef in his restaurant. Noah mentions that there is always a divide between the higher and lower class in capitalistic society. While the bear does not explicitly explore this part of capitalism, there are still some indicators that show this divide. Although it is not explicitly told what classes the characters belong to, Carmi is obviously in somewhat higher class than his employees, partially because he is boss and also because he has worked at elite restaurants. Glimpses of this divide that Noah mentions could be seen in Carmi's behavior when he abuses his power to a certain extent. It is worth to mention that this is one of the 4 unethical behaviors that McDermott and Wu write about in their article. Carmi yells and acts hostile to some of his employees, knowing that he is the one that caused the shots and therefore he is able to get away with it.
Get the fuck back to work! Move! Holy shit. Everybody! Fucking idiots!
Although it is important to mention that this is only triggered when he is under immense stress, meaning that, as McDermott and Wu write, it is a behavior that helps him cope with stress. It is also something that can be viewed from the perspective of Brayton's article, in which he means that characters that find some kind of financial success show symptoms of psychopathy. While Carmi is not a psychopath, stress and the craving for excellence does trigger the aggressive parts of his personality. But it is not only Carmi who is affected by the events of this episode, and he is certainly not the only one who is committing unethical behavior that McDermott and Wu write about, like knowingly violating workplace norms.
That's my vegetables, so...
What are you talking about? They're all going in the same place here.
It was the prep that was assigned to me, so they are mine. Let go and go away.
Neglecting duties.
Where the fuck is Marcus?
And also rude and unfair treatment, which is a behavior that is constantly reoccurring throughout the whole series.
I got a great vibe! Fuck your vibe. Don't ever fuck my vibe! I swear to God, I will fuck anything I want to fuck.
You are a fucking loser, and that is why you hate that I'm here, right? Because I see you for the loser that you fucking are!
Why? I get it. You have a short man's complex. You can barely reach over this fucking table, right? Is this why you have the tattoos and your cool little scars and you go out and you take your smoke breaks? It's fun, isn't it? But here's the thing. You're terrible at this. You're no good at it.
The reasoning behind these actions is the same as Carmi's abuse of power. Namely, they are also reactions to the stressful work environment. This part of the representation of stress is more aligned with naturalism, because these behaviors are mainly surface-level actions that are not concerned with underlying causes of a story's conflict. With that, I mean that they do not uncover deeper structures of society. They simply show natural reactions to stressful situations, meaning that they leave nothing to be deciphered. But the realistic representation of the perspective naturalism is even expressed through editing, or rather, the lack of editing. Almost the entirety of the episode is filmed in one take, which means that the camera travels along with the characters as they move from one place to another. This may sound counterintuitive, because fast-paced editing would usually be more appropriate for expressing stress, but it is somehow fitting in this episode. Although a lot of other episodes of The Bear use fast-paced editing to signal stress, the long take in this episode is used as a tool to create a somewhat uneasy feeling that is caused by breaking the viewer's expectations. It simultaneously makes the viewer feel as if they were following around the characters, that makes the feeling of stress expressed in the episode feel more raw and unprocessed. This also creates a feeling of objectivity by often switching from character to character and by not revealing and expressing their inner feelings, meaning that the viewer experiences only what the characters are showing on the surface. This is very well aligned with the objectivity which naturalism strives for, meaning that it is the realistic representation that naturalism wants to achieve by being neutral. In this video essay, I explore the representation of stress in the bear with the help of Lukács' theory of realism and the theory of naturalism. I even used research articles about the representation of capitalism in films and the representation of unethical workplace behavior in TV series to help me understand in what way stress is portrayed. What I found out through the analysis and discussion is that stress in the bear is represented through the aspects of both Lukács realism and the theory of naturalism. By this, I mean that stress is shown as a result of an underlying structural problem found in our society, namely that it is a product of the environment created by society's capitalistic system. But at the same time, stress is also shown as something that generates conflict without a need to be connected to a deeper underlying cause, and it also reflects the strive for neutrality that naturalism views as a realistic representation of events in a story. By claiming this, I mean that the bear represents stress as a product of capitalism, or rather, the toll that capitalism takes on the workers, and also as a toxic trait of an environment that leads to conflict and unethical behavior.